I'm standing at the head table, my wedding dress feeling suddenly too tight, watching my parents hand my sister a check for $30,000. My wedding, my day. And they're giving her a down payment on a house. I got a card that said, "Congratulations, that's it." To let me back up. Because this moment, this absolute gut punch of a moment, didn't come out of nowhere. It was the culmination of 28 years of being the backup child, the spare, the one who existed in the margins of my sister Hannah's spotlight. My name is Claire. I'm the oldest daughter in a family where birth order apparently meant nothing. Because from the moment my sister arrived 3 years after me, I became invisible. I need you to understand something. I wasn't a difficult child. I wasn't rebellious or wild or constantly demanding attention. I was actually the opposite. I was the easy one. The one who cleaned up after myself, who did my homework without being asked, who never threw tantrums in grocery stores. My parents would tell their friends, "Claire just takes care of herself. We never have to worry about her." They said it was a compliment. I heard it as a dismissal. Hannah was different. Hannah was their golden girl from day one. She had colic as a baby, so she needed constant attention. She struggled in school, so she needed tutoring and special programs and endless parent-teacher conferences where my mom and dad advocated passionately for her needs. She was sensitive, they said. She needed extra support, extra love, extra everything, and I got the leftovers. I'm not exaggerating when I say I raised myself. I learned to cook at 8 because my parents were always at one of Hannah's activities. I took the bus to my own doctor's appointments starting in middle school because they couldn't miss Hannah's dance recital, or soccer game, or art show. When I got accepted to the state university with a partial scholarship, they said, "That's nice," and went back to discussing Hannah's college tour schedule, a schedule that included 12 schools across 4 states, complete with hotel stays and nice dinners. Hannah ultimately chose the most expensive private school on her list. My parents paid for all 4 years without blinking. When she wanted to study abroad in Italy for a semester, they covered that too. She graduated with a degree in art history and moved home because she needed time to figure out what she wanted to do. She lived rent-free in their house for 2 years, while she found herself. Meanwhile, worked 3 jobs to cover what my scholarship didn't pay for. I graduated with honors, found a job in my field within a month, and moved into a tiny studio apartment I could barely afford. I was 22 and completely on my own. My parents called it character building. They never called Hannah's extended adolescence anything but necessary support. The worst part wasn't even the money, though that stung. It was the emotional absence. My high school graduation? My mom left after the ceremony to take Hannah to a doctor's appointment for a sprained ankle. My college graduation? They didn't come at all because Hannah had just gotten dumped and was going through something. When I got my first promotion at 25, a huge deal in my competitive field, I called them excited to share the news. My mom said congratulations and then spent 30 minutes telling me about Hannah's new boyfriend and how she was finally getting serious about her life. Hannah was 26, and telling me about Hannah protected before meeting and had been living at home for 4 years at that point. But I kept showing up. I kept calling on birthdays and holidays. I kept trying to be the good daughter, thinking that maybe, eventually, they'd see me. Really see me. Then I met David. David was everything I didn't know I needed. He was kind and steady, and he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. We met at a professional conference. He worked in a related field, and we started dating long distance for 6 months before he moved to my city. He proposed after a year. Nothing fancy, just the 2 of us on a hiking trail we loved, with a ring he'd saved for months to buy. It was perfect. I called my parents immediately, phone shaking in my hand, so happy I could barely get the words out. "That's wonderful, honey," my mom said. Her voice was warm but distracted. "Listen, can I call you back? Hannah just walked in and she's upset about something at work." She didn't call back. I texted her the next day. She responded with a thumbs up emoji. 3 days later, Hannah called me directly, not to congratulate me, to tell me she'd just gotten engaged too. The timeline didn't make sense. She'd been dating this guy Marcus for maybe 4 months, but apparently he'd proposed the same weekend David proposed to me, and my parents were over the moon. My mom called me twice that week to talk about Hannah's engagement, the ring, the proposal story, how Marcus came from such a good family, how this was exactly what Hannah needed. She mentioned my engagement once, in passing. "I'm so glad you both found nice men." We'd both gotten the same participation trophy. The wedding planning was when things really crystallized for me. David and I set a date, a Saturday in September, about 8 months away. We were paying for everything ourselves, because that's what I'd always done. My parents offered to contribute $2,000. I was honestly surprised they offered anything. Then Hannah set her date, 2 months after mine. And suddenly my parents' credit cards came out. They paid for her venue, a gorgeous historic mansion I'd looked at but couldn't afford. They paid for her dress, a designer gown from a boutique that required an appointment just to browse. They hired a wedding planner. They covered the photographer, the flowers, the band, the open bar, all of it. The budget they discussed openly, at family dinners I was occasionally invited to, was close to $70,000. I was planning my wedding with a total budget of $15,000, including what David's parents generously contributed. I was DIYing centerpieces and negotiating with vendors and looking for a dress at sample sales. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? This was the pattern of my entire life. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. It hurt every single day. It hurt when my mom sent me links to bridesmaid dresses for Hannah's wedding, but never asked about mine. It hurt when my dad spent a weekend helping Hannah and Marcus look at houses for after the wedding, but couldn't find time to help me move into the bigger apartment David and I had rented together. It hurt when Hannah called me crying because the string quartet she wanted was already booked, and my mom immediately started making calls to find an alternative, moving mountains to solve this crisis. I had called me the week before because I couldn't afford both the photographer I wanted and the flowers I wanted, asking if, possibly, they could help with one or the other. "I thought you and David were handling everything yourselves," she'd said. "That's what you told us. We already gave you the $2,000. Hannah got a $70,000 wedding, and I got told to stick to my budget. The weeks leading up to my wedding were a blur of final preparations, last-minute crises, and mounting dread. Not dread about marrying David. I'd never been more sure of anything, but dread about what my wedding day would reveal, what it would confirm about my place in my family. Hannah was one of my bridesmaids. I'd asked her because not asking your sister to be in your wedding feels like admitting defeat, confirming that the relationship is broken beyond repair. I kept hoping that maybe this would be the thing that brought us closer, that she'd step up and be the sister I'd always wanted. She didn't. She missed the dress fitting because she had to meet with her wedding planner. She skipped the rehearsal dinner because she and Marcus had a couples therapy session that couldn't be rescheduled. She showed up to my bachelorette party 2 hours late and spent the whole time on her phone, texting about details for her own wedding. My mom made excuses for every single absence. "She's just so stressed with her own planning. You know how sensitive she is. Try to be understanding, Claire. This is a big time for her too." My wedding was in 3 weeks. Hers was in 3 months. But somehow, her stress trumped mine. The morning of my wedding, I woke up in a hotel room with my bridesmaids, 3 close friends from college and work, and Hannah. The others helped me get ready, making me laugh and keeping champagne flowing and telling me how beautiful I looked. Hannah sat in the corner, scrolling through her phone, occasionally looking up to critique something. "Are you sure about that lipstick shade?" she asked. "It's a bit bold." I'd chosen a classic red because it made me feel confident. I ignored her. "And your hair, it's very done. I'm going for something more natural for my wedding. Effortless, you know? One of my friends, Jessica, physically turned Hannah's chair to face the wall. "If you can't be supportive, be quiet." Hannah pouted but shut up. My parents arrived at the venue early, and I felt a flutter of hope. Maybe today would be different. Maybe they'd finally show up for me, the way they always showed up for Hannah. My dad hugged me and said I looked beautiful. My mom straightened my veil and told me to stand up straighter. Then they went to check on the seating arrangements, worried that Hannah might not have a good view from her position at the head table. The ceremony was perfect. David's vows made me cry. Mine apparently made half the guests cry. We kissed. We walked back down the aisle as a married couple. And for about 30 minutes, I felt like the most important person in the world. Then we got to the reception. The venue was beautiful. I'd worked so hard to make it special on our budget. String lights everywhere, flowers I'd arranged myself, centerpieces I'd DIY'd for weeks. It wasn't the historic mansion Hannah was getting, but it was ours, and it was lovely. Dinner was served, toasts were made. David's best man was hilarious. My maid of honor was touching. We cut the cake, we did our first dance. Everything was going exactly as I'd hoped. Then, between the main course and dessert, my parents stood up. My dad tapped his glass to get everyone's attention. I smiled, assuming they were about to give a parents' toast. Late, but better than never. "We want to take a moment to do something special," my dad said, smiling broadly. "As parents, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing your children succeed. We're so proud of both our daughters." Both. He said both. My wedding day, and he was talking about both of us. "Claire has always been so independent," my mom added, taking the microphone. "She never needed much from us. She's made her own way, and we admire that so much." There it was again. The compliment that wasn't a compliment. The praise for not needing them, delivered at my wedding, where their absence had been so glaringly obvious throughout the entire planning process. "But Hannah," my dad continued, "Hannah has always needed a little more support, and we've been saving for a special occasion, to help her and Marcus start their life together." My stomach dropped. "We know marriage is expensive," my mom said, smiling at Hannah, who was sitting 3 seats down from me at the head table. "And we know how hard Hannah has been working to plan her wedding, so we wanted to do something to help." My dad pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. A big, obvious envelope. "Hannah, Marcus, this is for you, for your future, for your down payment on your first home together." He handed the envelope to Hannah. She opened it, gasped, and started crying. Marcus stood up to shake my dad's hand. My mom was beaming. "It's $30,000, Hannah announced to the room, her voice breaking with emotion. "Oh my God, you guys! Thank you so much!" The guests clapped. Some people cheered. Someone whistled. I sat there in my wedding dress at my own wedding reception and watched my parents give my sister $30,000. David's hand found mine under the table. He squeezed it so hard, I thought my bones might break. Not because he was angry, though I could feel the tension radiating from him, but because he knew I needed anchoring. He knew I was about to float away into some dissociative state where none of this was real. I looked down at my place setting, at my plate, at the centerpiece I'd made with my own hands because I couldn't afford to hire someone. Then I looked at my parents, who were hugging Hannah and Marcus, who were posing for photos with them, who were basking in the gratitude and attention. They never looked at me. Not once. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor, cutting through the applause and chatter. The room quieted. "That's incredibly generous," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm, measured, almost pleasant. Really, $30,000 is life-changing money. My mom smiled at me, relieved, probably thinking I was about to be gracious. "We just wanted to help." "I actually have an announcement too," I interrupted. I could feel David's hand tighten on mine, questioning. but I gently pulled away and stood up fully, stepping away from the table. Every eye in the room was on me now. "I've been thinking a lot about family lately," I said. "About what it means, about what we owe each other, about how we show up for the people we love." My dad's smile started to fade. "Most of you know I paid for this wedding myself. Well, David and I did, with help from his wonderful parents." I nodded to David's mom and dad, who were sitting at a nearby table, looking confused but supportive. "We did it on a budget of $15,000. That included the venue, the food, the band, everything you're enjoying tonight." I could see some guests starting to look uncomfortable. A few were glancing at my parents. My parents contributed $2,000, which I'm grateful for. Really, every bit helped. I paused. "Hannah's wedding, which is in 3 months, has a budget of $70,000. Fully paid for by our parents." The room was dead silent now. "And tonight, at my wedding, they just gave Hannah $30,000 for a house down payment." I looked directly at my parents. My mom's face was pale. My dad looked frozen. "I'm not mad about the money." "I am, but that's not the point. The point is what the money represents." Hannah started to stand up. "Claire, this isn't the time." "Sit down, Hannah," I said quietly. She sat. "The point is that for 28 years, I've been told I don't need anything, that I'm independent, that I'm strong, that I can handle things on my own." My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed through. "And you know what? You were right. I can handle things on my own. I have been, because I had to be." I turned to address the room more broadly, because I needed witnesses to this. I needed people to hear this who weren't caught up in my family's dysfunction. When I was 16, I got straight A's. Hannah got C's. My parents went to every one of Hannah's parent-teacher conferences to discuss her learning style and her potential. They didn't come to a single one of mine because I was doing fine. When I graduated high school with honors, they left my graduation early to take Hannah to a doctor's appointment. When I graduated college, also with honors, they didn't come at all. My mom made a small sound, like she was about to protest, but I kept going. When I got my first promotion, a huge deal in my career, they spent the phone call talking about Hannah's new boyfriend. When I got engaged to David, they gave me a thumbs up emoji. When Hannah got engaged, 4 months into her relationship, they called me twice in 1 week to tell me how excited they were. People were staring at my parents now. I could feel the shift in the room. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," I said. "I'm telling you this because I want you all to know something. I want you to know what my secret has been this entire time. This was it. This most about the people had in Moderts and the parents. This was it. The moment I'd been building toward without fully realizing it. 3 years ago, I started therapy. Just for myself, to deal with some things. And my therapist helped me understand something crucial. I've been trying to earn love that was never going to be given freely. I've been trying to prove I'm worthy of attention from people who had already decided I wasn't worth their time." I looked at my parents again. My mom was crying. My dad looked like he wanted to disappear. So I stopped trying. I stopped calling every week. I stopped sending long updates about my life. I stopped asking for their input or advice. I stopped expecting them to show up. And you know what happened? I let the question hang there for a moment. Nothing. They didn't notice. They didn't reach out more. They didn't ask if something was wrong. Because I wasn't the child who mattered. I was the child who could handle it. Hannah was crying now too, but I couldn't tell if it was from guilt or embarrassment or something else entirely. My secret is this. I've already grieved the parents I wished I had. I did that work in therapy. I processed the pain of being the forgotten daughter, the backup child, the one who existed in the margins, and I made peace with it. I decided that I was going to build a life surrounded by people who actually see me, who actually show up, who actually care. I gestured to my friends at the head table, to David's family, to the colleagues and chosen family filling the room. These people are here because they want to be, because they care about me and David, because they've shown up for us, not just today, but consistently, repeatedly, without being asked. They're the family I chose. I turned back to my parents one more time. So thank you for the $2,000, and thank you for showing everyone here, one final time, exactly who you are. You gave me a gift today after all. Clarity. Absolute, undeniable clarity. I picked up my champagne glass. My hand was shaking, but my voice was steady. To David, to our marriage, to the family we're building together, and to the family that's already here, the one that actually shows up. I drank. The room stayed silent for a beat, 2 beats, 3. Then David stood up, raised his glass, and said, "To Claire, the strongest, most incredible person I know." His parents stood, my friends stood. One by one, the entire room stood, except for my parents and Hannah, who remained frozen in their seats. Everyone drank. My dad tried to catch my eye, to say something, but I turned away. I took David's hand and walked to the middle of the dance floor. Our band, bless them, immediately started playing our song for the second time that night, and David pulled me close. "Are you okay?" he whispered. "I will be," I said. And I meant it. We danced, and gradually other couples joined us. The reception continued, people ate dessert, the band played, everything kept moving forward. Except for my parents, who left quietly about 20 minutes after my speech without saying goodbye. Hannah and Marcus left shortly after. That was cruel. I didn't respond. In the weeks following the wedding, the fallout was predictable and messy. My mom called crying, asking how I could embarrass them like that. My dad sent a long email about how they'd always done their best and I was being ungrateful. Hannah left me a voicemail saying I'd ruined the happiness of her engagement and wedding planning, that I was selfish and jealous and always had been. I listened to none of the voicemails all the way through. I read the emails once and then archived them. What I didn't expect was the support from extended family. My aunt, my mom's sister, called me the day after the wedding. "I've been watching this happen for years," she said. "I've tried to talk to your mother about it, but she wouldn't listen. What you said needed to be said. Good for you." 3 cousins reached out with similar messages. Even my grandmother, my dad's mother, called to tell me she was proud of me for standing up for myself. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd noticed the favoritism. I was just the only one with nothing left to lose by naming it. David's family was incredible throughout everything. His mom brought over food and wine and just sat with me while I cried. Not sad tears, but angry ones, grief-stricken ones, relieved ones, all mixed together. His dad told me I was welcome at every family gathering, every holiday, every Sunday dinner, for the rest of my life. "You're our daughter now," he said simply. "That's how this works." I cried harder. Hannah's wedding happened 3 months later. I wasn't invited. She sent my invitation to my parents' house instead of the apartment David and I shared. And when my mom realized I didn't have one, she said it must have been an oversight. It wasn't. Hannah told me via text that she couldn't have that kind of energy at her celebration. I spent that Saturday helping David paint our living room. We ordered pizza and watched terrible reality TV. It was a good day. I haven't spoken to my parents since the wedding. They've tried a few times, mostly through text, nothing substantial. My mom sent a message on my birthday. "Thinking of you today." I didn't respond. My dad sent a Christmas card to our apartment addressed to David and Claire. I threw it away unopened. Hannah has tried a few times too, but her attempts are half-hearted at best. "Hope you're well" messages every few months. I don't respond to those either. People sometimes ask me if I regret what I said at my wedding, if I wish I'd handled it differently, more privately, with more grace. The answer is no. Here's what I've learned. You can't have a private conversation with people who've spent decades refusing to listen. You can't gently address a problem with people who don't think there is a problem. And you can't maintain a relationship with people who fundamentally don't see you as equal to their other child. I spent 28 years trying to be good enough, trying to be noticed, trying to matter. And the truth is, I always mattered. Just not to them. I mattered to my friends. I mattered to David. I mattered to his family. I mattered to colleagues who became mentors and allies. I mattered to the therapist who helped me untangle years of conditioning that told me I was somehow less deserving of love and attention than my sister. I mattered to myself. That's the secret I revealed at my wedding, though I don't think most people caught it. The secret wasn't just about my parents' favoritism, or Hannah's golden child status, or the grotesque disparity in how they treated us. The secret was that I'd already let them go. I'd already done the work of separation. I'd already built a life that didn't need them to validate it. The speech wasn't me burning a bridge. The bridge was already gone. I was just making sure everyone else could see the smoke. Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if things had been different. If my parents had loved us equally. If Hannah and I had been actual sisters, instead of rivals in a competition I never signed up for. If family dinners were something I looked forward to, instead of dreaded. But then I look at what I have now. A husband who sees me completely and loves me fiercely. In-laws who treat me like a daughter. Friends who show up without being asked. A career I've built through my own hard work. A therapist who's helped me understand that my worth was never determined by how much attention my parents gave me. I have a life I chose, filled with people I chose, built on foundations I laid myself. And you know what? It's a really good life. Last month, David and I bought a house. A modest 3-bedroom in a nice neighborhood. Nothing fancy. We saved for the down payment ourselves. It took 2 years of careful budgeting and sacrifice. The day we got the keys, David's parents came over with champagne and a housewarming gift. His mom cried happy tears in our empty living room. "I'm so proud of you both," she said, hugging us. "You worked so hard for this." I thought about that $30,000 check my parents gave Hannah and Marcus at my wedding. I thought about how that money had been used to buy a house twice the size of ours in a fancier part of town. I thought about how my parents had been so eager to make things easy for Hannah, to cushion every landing, to smooth every rough edge. And then I looked around at our small house, the one David and I earned together, the one that represented our partnership and our determination and our independence, and I felt something I never expected: gratitude. Not for what my parents didn't give me, but for what their absence taught me. It taught me self-reliance. It taught me that I could set goals and achieve them without anyone's approval. It taught me to choose people who choose me back. It taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who sees you and loves you anyway. Their favoritism, their neglect, their complete inability to see me as equal to my sister, it all hurt. It still hurts sometimes, usually in unexpected moments. I'll see a mother and daughter shopping together, laughing, and I'll feel that familiar ache of something I never had. But the hurt doesn't define me anymore. It's just part of my story, not the whole story. David asked me once, about 6 months after the wedding, if I thought I'd ever reconcile with my parents. "Do you want to?" I asked him. He shrugged. "I want whatever makes you happy, but I also want you to know that you don't owe them anything. Not your time, not your energy, not your forgiveness. Not if it costs you your peace." I loved him so much in that moment, I could barely breathe. "I don't think so," I said finally. "I don't think reconciliation is possible when one side doesn't believe they did anything wrong. And I've realized I don't need it. I don't need their apology or their acknowledgement or their changed behavior. I just need distance. He kissed my forehead. Then that's what you'll have. And that's what I've maintained. Distance. Clean, clear, uncomplicated distance. People sometimes want me to be angrier than I am. They hear my story and they get furious on my behalf, which I appreciate, don't get me wrong. But I'm not angry anymore. I was, for a while. I was so angry I could taste it. Bitter and metallic in my mouth every time I thought about them. But anger is exhausting. And at some point, I decided I'd rather spend that energy on the life I was building than on the family I'd lost. That's not forgiveness exactly. I haven't forgiven them. Not in the way people usually mean that word. I haven't absolved them of responsibility for their actions, or decided that what they did was okay, or that I'm over it. I've just decided it's not my problem anymore. Their inability to love me the way I deserve to be loved says everything about them, and nothing about me. Their choice to give my sister everything, while giving me crumbs, was their choice, not my failure. I've let it go not because they earned it, but because I deserve to be free of it. Hannah, interestingly, has tried harder than our parents to maintain some kind of contact. Every few months, I get a text. Hey, hope you're doing well. Thinking about you. Once, I miss you. I don't respond, but I also don't block her. I'm not sure why. Maybe part of me wants to leave the door open, just a crack. Maybe part of me remembers being 6 years old, excited about having a little sister, before I understood what her arrival would mean for my place in the family. Or maybe I'm just not quite ready to make that cut final. David thinks Hannah is dealing with guilt. She knows, he says. She has to know. Nobody could live through what she lived through and not understand that she was favored. Or maybe Hannah genuinely believes she deserved all that extra attention and support. Maybe she's convinced herself that she needed it more, that she was more vulnerable, that the disparity was justified. I'll probably never know. And increasingly, I realize I don't need to. The lesson I want people to take from my story isn't about revenge or vindication, or calling people out publicly. It's not even really about favoritism, though that's the framework everything else hangs on. The lesson is this: you cannot make people see you if they're determined to look away. You cannot earn love from people who've already decided you're not worth the investment. And you absolutely cannot sacrifice your peace, your happiness, your sense of self-worth to maintain relationships with people who fundamentally don't value you. It's not giving up. It's not being cruel or unforgiving or selfish. It's recognizing that some relationships are toxic, especially when they're with family. It's understanding that just because someone is your parent or your sibling doesn't mean they have an unlimited claim on your time, energy, or emotional labor. It's knowing when to walk away. I walked away at my wedding because I'd already left, emotionally, years before. That speech, that revelation, that moment, it was just me making the invisible visible. I was showing everyone what had always been true, but never acknowledged. And in doing so, I freed myself from the last shred of hope that things would change. That's what hope had been doing to me for so long, keeping me tethered to people who'd never shown up for me, waiting for the day they finally would, the day they finally saw me, the day I finally mattered. That day was never coming. And accepting that wasn't defeat, it was liberation. So no, I don't regret my wedding speech. I don't regret the fallout or the broken relationships or the family gatherings I'll never attend. I don't regret choosing my peace over their comfort. Because here's what I gained. Everything. I gained freedom from expectations that were never going to be met. I gained clarity about who actually cares about me. I gained the ability to build a family, through marriage, through friendship, through choice, that reflects my values and my definition of love. I gained myself back, and that's worth more than any $30,000 check, any wedding budget, any inheritance or gift or gesture they could ever offer. My life, my peace, my joy. It's mine. Built by me. For me. They can't take that away. They never could. That's my secret. That's what I revealed at my wedding. Even if I didn't say it explicitly, I'd already won because I'd stopped playing their game. I'd stopped measuring my worth by their attention. I'd stopped waiting for them to love me the way I deserved. I started loving myself that way instead. And I found people who loved me that way too. That's the happily ever after I never knew I needed. Not the fairy tale ending where the parents finally realize their mistake and apologize, and everyone reconciles and learns a valuable lesson. The real ending. The one where I'm happy without them. The one where their absence doesn't leave a hole, because I filled my life with people who actually want to be there. The one where I wake up next to someone who chose me, every day, over and over again. The one where I look in the mirror and like the person looking back, not despite what happened, not because I overcame it, but because I decided that I was worth more than the scraps I'd been given. I decided I mattered. And then I built a life that reflected that belief. That's the story. That's the secret. That's what I want anyone who's lived through something similar to know. You matter. Your pain is real. And you don't owe anyone, not your parents, not your siblings, not anyone, a relationship that costs you your peace. Walk away if you need to. Build something new. Find your people. Create your own definition of family. And never, ever apologize for choosing yourself, because you deserve to be chosen. You always did.